Hello and a very good afternoon. You're watching CNN News 18 and I am Aditya Raj Kaul. Today, the nation is marking the third anniversary of the brutal Pulwama terror attack that happened in south of Kashmir on 14th of Feb in 2019, in which 40 of our brave hearts sacrificed their life for the nation. And today, we are going to talk about that moment that changed the history of Jammu and Kashmir. And today, joining us live here exclusively is Lieutenant General KJS Dhillon, who was the GOC of the Chinar Corps that handles the entire Kashmir Valley at that historic moment when that attack was avenged. The entire jaish-e-mohammed leadership was eliminated in Kashmir, and also later the Balakot attack happened. Another historic moment when General Dhillon was there was, of course, the Article 370 abrogation. General Dhillon, thank you so much for joining us here on CNN News 18.
Thank you, Aditya. Good morning to you and good morning to all the viewers of CNN News 18.
So glad to have you here just 2 weeks after retirement. And this is the first exclusive interview that is happening. General Dhillon, I want to begin by asking you, this is a sad moment. We are marking the brave sacrifice of 40 of our brave hearts of the CRPF. I want to ask you, at that particular moment on 14th of Feb 2019, where were you? You had just taken the command, really. And this happened. What was going through your mind and what really happened in the moments after that attack?
Aditya, I must start by paying my condolences to the 40 brave hearts of the CRPF whom we lost 3 years ago in that dastardly attack at Lethpura, Pulwama. And I also must pay my respects to the families of the fallen soldiers. Now, coming to your question proper, I took over the command of Chinar Corps, that is 15 Corps, on 10th of February 2019. And it was after 4 days, on 14th February in the evening, that this IED took place. Moment I came to know, I had gone somewhere, I was coming back from that location. And when I came to know that such a thing has happened, frankly speaking, one could not imagine the extent of it. Immediately, I told my commanding officer on ground and I spoke to the brigade commander. And immediately, I spoke to Mr. Zulfikar Hassan, who was the IG CRPF and responsible for that area, and the convoy was of the CRPF. Having done all this, the first thing which came to my mind after the details were known, but before that, I activated my complete helicopter fleet for casualty evacuation. I rang up the commander at 92 Base Hospital, told my staff to activate all the doctors, the operation theaters and all. So having done all that, then we got into the casualty evacuation and the survivals, looking after them. Slowly and slowly, the things started clearing up and the extent of the blast came to be known. And it was after some time, then we realized the gravity and the losses which were caused by this IED. So at that time, in fact, after some time when we had a meeting of all the security agencies, intelligences, and the civil administration to find out and carry out our future course of action, the point which you asked, what came to your mind? What came to my mind was, I still remember that line, we'll get I can't speak the next word on the TV, and that was the line which came to mind, we'll get the so-and-so. And
Right.
that is exactly the security forces and intelligences worked. And in less than 100 hours, we did get them. So this is the initial aspects of that fateful day. And I once again feel for the families and convey my regards to them.
Right. Sir, you mentioned about those 100 hours. I can only imagine that it had been only 4 days for you to be there on ground. And there was a mighty challenge. One, to, console and, of course, have those families that were all across India to bear that pain of loss, of longing, of that brutal hour of the 40 brave hearts sacrificing their life, but also the duty, the call of duty that you had to now respond to eliminate the Jaish-e-Mohammed. And you yourself, as we chatted in the past as well, that you had that resolve within you, that you decided that within 100 hours, whatever may come, you will eliminate them. And I remember now that press conference that happened, in which that one sentence of yours almost has now become, viral now. People say it, people share it very proudly, because you made it happen down in Kashmir Valley. Can you also recollect what happened in that press conference and in those 100 hours that you eliminated the Pakistani jaish-e-mohammed?
Actually, after having looked after the casualties, the casualty, the medical treatment, and other aspects which had to be looked after that incident, then the complete team security forces, as I call it, that is the army, the JK police, SOG, CRPF, intelligence agencies, and the civil administration. We got together that evening and we put our heads together. And one thing which was very clear, we are going to get them. And we are not going to lie low till the time we get these people. And since it was a tragedy of a very, very high, I'll say, weight, the whole nation was feeling bad about it. And we had a responsibility, we had a mandate, and we had to do it. And that was when we decided that we have to get them now. All the agencies started working on it, and within next 48 hours, we got the lead. The main perpetuator, the jaish-e-mohammed commander in the valley, the Pakistani national terrorist Kamran, he was also known as code word Ghazi, and the few people with him. And within 72 hours, we got the contact, and we eliminated this module, who was basically the main executioner of this Pulwama IED blast, within 100 hours. We did pay a price. We lost Major Vibhuti Dondayal in that, and our bravehearts, a thief from the army, one from JKP, Sergeant Abdul, I still remember, from Karna. And that 96 or less than 100 hours, then came this press conference which you are referring to. Right. And in that press conference, we gave out all the details. And one question which was asked was, why so many casualties on the security forces side? And to that, I still remember, we took those casualties because we did not want the collateral damage. We did not want the civilian casualties. Like I said, that time also, we took it on our chin. We suffered losses, but we eliminated this module and we ensured the people who had carried out this attack were eliminated. And then came this question, line which you are referring to, kitne Ghazi aaye, kitne Ghazi gaye. So there was a question asked, since Kamran had an alias or a code name, Ghazi. Most of the Pakistani terrorists in the past also have had this code word. It's a very, you can say, liked code word by them. And since I have served in Kashmir since 1988 as a captain, as a major, then as a lieutenant colonel, CO Intral, then sector commander RR, then BGS, and various occasions, the number of terrorists with the code word Ghazi who had been eliminated in the past, including one which became little famous, Ghazi Baba, who was killed in Tral.
Right.
So when this question came up that, sir, has Ghazi been killed? So instant reply for me was, kitne Ghazi aaye, kitne Ghazi gaye. So don't worry, we are there, we'll look after it. And it's not only these Ghazis. I go back to Muhammad Ghazni. So let it be known to India, let it be known to Pakistan, let it be known all the terrorists. Kitne Ghazi aaye, kitne Ghazi gaye, Hindustan ki might will stay, Hindustan's writ will run, and Kashmir is of India.
Right, sir. That is certainly the resolve, and you have proven it on the ground in Kashmir Valley as well. I want to also, move a little ahead. After that, the Balakot strike happened. A strong message of will was conveyed by India to Pakistan. And a few weeks later came the historic moment when the Article 370 abrogation happened. And you were in charge on command in Kashmir, taking care of the security. You were one of the key focal people out there, advising the government also, and also keeping a very close watch on the security situation. A lot of propaganda was done by Pakistan. A lot of instigation for stone pelting, law and order situation, terrorism, radicalization, recruitment. How difficult was that? Because it's been quite some time, 2.5 years since abrogation, but Pakistan hasn't been able to do anything in the Kashmir Valley. What led to that moment, really? Because there was a lot of campaign on social media, in the international media also, that situation is worsening. Situation is so bad in Kashmir But I also was there with you and others. Situation was absolutely normal. So how difficult was it to keep it normal?
See, when the government of India took a decision by the Act of Parliament and by the President's accent on 5th of August 2019, when Article 370, Article 35A were abrogated, the delimitation process was also announced, and the bifurcation of the state into two union territories was announced. And this was the time when a lot of chatter was there in Kashmir and in Pakistan. And I am not going to go into the politics of it or the what political statements were made, but very, you can say, downright illogical statements were made that Kashmir will burn, Kashmir, something like this will happen and that will happen. But how we managed it, again, the team security forces, the civil administration, the intelligences, we all got together and we had only 2-point agenda. One was that government's orders will be implemented with the full writ of the government, and there will be no collateral damage, there will be no civilian casualty. Second mandate which we gave to ourselves was there will not be any breakdown of law and order, there will be no burning of the property, there will be nothing like, you can say, anarchy in the state. So with these two mandates, and the first one was very difficult, that there will be no civilian casualty and there will be no breakdown of law and order. But to the credit of all the security forces, intelligences, and the civil administration, not a single civilian casualty happened after 3 to 4 months of 5th of August 2019. And I can proudly say I've seen the Kashmir Valley for more than 30 years now, especially after the terrorism started in 1989. Those 3 to 4 months were probably the most peaceful 3 to 4 months in the history of terrorism in Kashmir. And as you said, Pakistan couldn't take it. He just didn't know what hit him, but he had no option. All his options of radicalization, of propaganda, of false narrative, of trying to get diplomatic support, trying to whip up the emotions within Pakistan and the neighborhood, they all failed because the Indian government, the Indian state, the Indian security forces, Indian agencies, and the civil administration did everything in such a transparent manner, in such a focused manner,
Right.
that the complete media was in Srinagar. They were given a proper place. They were working from there, and any was free to go anywhere. So that coordination, that synergy between all the security forces ensured that there were no civil casualties, there was no damage to property, and there were no unnecessary movement or things like aag lag jayegi. So
Right.
we proved everyone wrong, and we ensured the government's writ was implemented on ground in a very peaceful and a democratic manner.
Right. So it's been 2.5 years as we spoke, and quite a few historic moments happened when your tenure at the GOC of the Chinar Corps. But over the last 1 year, we've had a ceasefire now at the LOC. We've seen the firing that continuously happened, in which Pakistan targeted innocent civilians in Kashmir at the LOC. It targeted security forces, and then India had to respond to it. That has ended, at least in the last 1 year. Do you think Pakistan is certainly in any way going to change? Because the proxy war, the deep state's involvement with the terror groups like Lashkar-e-Toiba, jaish-e-mohammed, and Hizbul Mujahideen and Al-Badr has been out there and open. The UN knows this, the United States knows it, the global community knows it and is well aware. So do you think Pakistan will any way change, or do you think these are tactics for its own internal problems, and they will again perhaps begin a tirade against the local Kashmiris?
See, talking about the ceasefire understanding between India and Pakistan on the line of control, official statements are issued from time to time by the MO Directorate, by the Army Headquarters. So I will not go into the ceasefire aspects of it, but I'll go into the major aspect of your question. Will Pakistan change? Pakistan has not changed in the history. Pakistan will not change. Even today, when we are talking, the Pakistan is training, abetting, equipping, financing all the terrorist organizations like jaish-e-mohammed or Al-Badr or Lashkar-e-Toiba, Hizbul Mujahideen, which are primarily operating in Kashmir. And in the last few months, the number of Pakistani national terrorists who have been killed in Kashmir is a clear-cut, you can say, evidence that Pakistan has not changed and Pakistan will not change. Pakistan will continue to create trouble in Kashmir. Pakistan will continue to disturb peace in Kashmir. Pakistan will continue to do all actions which lead to the killings of the innocent people in Kashmir. People lose their jobs, people lose their livelihood, the tourists come down. Kashmir is basically an agrarian society and society which is dependent on tourism. Like, agar dunya pe bahisht hai to yahi hai, yahi hai, yahi hai. So if that is the case, this beautiful heaven on earth has to be preserved and presented to the world in the bowl which can bring in livelihood, which can bring in more job security for the people of Kashmir. Now, if that comes, then people will not be radicalized. So Pakistan's aim is to keep all types of disturbances going on so that the population does not earn well, the tourists don't come. And then when the chap is hungry, the chap is not having any job, he is more liable to be recruited as a terrorist or a propagandist or an overgrown worker. So Pakistan will not stop at anything. Pakistan has been trying everything in the past, it will continue to do that. Having said that, the government of India, the government of unity of Jammu and Kashmir, the civil administration, the intelligence and the security forces, their coordination, their synergy is so good that all actions of Pakistan, either of infiltration through line of control, infiltration through other areas on the international border, dropping of weapons by drones, or infiltration through third country, all have been checked by the agency in a very, very meticulous manner. And like you said, it's more than 2.5 years, yeah. And nothing Pakistan could do to disturb the peace in Kashmir except for killing few innocent civilians. Now that is what tells the character of a nation, the character of a country who is hell-bent on creating trouble in Kashmir. But the team security forces, the civil administration and the government, they are doing a tremendous job there and they will continue to do it. Nothing is going to happen. Kashmir will remain peaceful. Kashmiris will prosper.
You rightly said, sir, that Pakistan won't change. Pakistan has been known as the mothership of terror, and Pakistan has used terrorism as a state policy for a very long time against India. And, Imran Khan's statements of late are self-reflective of the deep strategy of Pakistan, along with other terror groups. We saw what they did in Afghanistan, and now are continuously playing havoc in Kashmir as well. But I want to ask you about the rise of the Taliban as well in Afghanistan. It happened about 5 to 6 months back in August. The Kabul fell, and Haqqani network, which has close links with Pakistan, came about in Kabul. We've seen these terror groups really grow. Many of the prisoners of Lashkar-e-Toiba and jaish-e-mohammed who were in prisons in Afghanistan were released and went towards POK. So how well is India prepared right now, and how well should we actually look at the rise of the Taliban and their close links with the Pakistani deep state and be very much cautious of that situation in Jammu and Kashmir?
Okay, I'll take this question in two parts. Part one is after 15th of August last year, when the Taliban took charge of Kabul and Afghanistan. You must be remembering the statement by former US Secretary of State, Ms. Hillary Clinton, wherein she had said, if you have snakes in your backyard and you expect them to bite only the neighbors, that means you are not thinking right.
Yeah.
And that statement was given sometime, I think, in 2011, if I remember correctly, latter half of 2011. And that statement is coming true now. We are seeing what's happening on Durand Line. We are also seeing what's happening inside Pakistan and how things are getting into Pakistan area from Afghanistan. So I'm not going to go into that. Having said only that much, I finished that there. Coming to Kashmir. In Kashmir today, we had encountered the Afghan Taliban, or that time Afghan fighters, they used to call in 90s, early 90s, in the counter-terrorist operations. And that era is gone now. Today in Kashmir, The security network, the intelligence network, the civil administration's reach, the public's response, and the type of initiatives by the government which are taken, the common Kashmiri today is fed up of terrorism. He wants his do time ki dal roti and he wants his roti kapra makan, good education for his children, good health facilities for his family. He wants good infrastructure, good job opportunities. And this is what are his cravings. He is not looking at terrorism. He is not looking at anything else. So today's Kashmir is different than Kashmir of '89. So today, even if the Taliban fighters, they come to India, but before that, Pakistan has to face the brunt themselves. There is no way it can have even a 0.0001% impact on our security setup because we are so nicely handling the whole situation that nothing will change in Kashmir irrespective of any type of infusion from Pakistan or anyone else. One guarantee is there, anyone who enters Kashmir is not going back on his two legs. And he is going to stay in Kashmir for the entire history, maybe under the ground.
Right. So, one final question, very strong statements on the third anniversary of Pulwama. I want to ask one last question on Kashmir and then a couple of others. On Kashmir, when you were there on ground, I saw you, even though you had a very strong personality and, that instilled fear in the terrorists, you also appealed to the mothers. You appealed to the mothers that make your sons understand that, this path is wrong and you have to surrender. You have to choose democracy, education, and progress instead of such radicalization, killing, which will destroy several families and have destroyed several families. How difficult was that? Because we did see after your appeal, many people surrendered. In fact, today, after your tenure, we are seeing a situation where Indian flag is all across the Kashmir Valley, from Lal Chowk to Hari Parvat to several government buildings and police stations, etc. The Indian flag is rising high, and there are local Kashmiri Muslims who are coming ahead. It's not, Indian Army or the CRPF or others. So, how dynamic is it change, and how difficult was that phase?
Okay, the first part of the question, my appeal to the Kashmiri mothers for not allowing their children to go into terrorism, that came from my understanding of Kashmiri society. You are a Kashmiri yourself. You know that part of the world very well. Since I served there as a young captain, then as a young major, then also as a lieutenant colonel and subsequently as CO and above, I have known a lot of Kashmiris in the most terror-affected areas of Lolab, of Rajwar, Handwara, of Tral, because those are the areas I was most of the time posted, and even area like Pulwama and Shupian.
Yeah.
So I understand the Kashmiri society and the role of Kashmiri mother. Like I always say, a mother is a very important part of a close-knit family in any society. The mother decides how the house will be run, what will be the budget, how the kitchen will be run, how the children's education will be done, who comes for tuition, whether the children go out or not. Everything in the house from early morning, what time she will get up and what time everyone will get a cup of tea. From that point till how much and when anyone will get his dinner or when people will go to sleep, when the lights will be switched off, when the house will be locked. So mother decides everything. So another thing is the Kashmiri young boys, they are very attached to their mother because it's a very close society and the love for the mother is tremendous amongst the young kids. Having known that, I realized if anyone who can appeal and the boys can return, I never use the word surrender. I use the word return because if the boys can return, they can only return if the mother appeals to them.
True.
So we started an action called Operation Mom, which became very famous, where all the security forces were part of it. And it was a very coordinated effort of everyone, including the civil administration, wherein we approached the mothers, we approached the village elders, village heads, opinion makers, the relatives, and anyone who could influence that family or approach that family. And one thing which was guaranteed was the safety of the boy, you can say, declaration of his identity, and no cases will be registered against him. So initially there was a little hesitation, but once the first boy, the second boy, the third boy, he returned, and then they realized that nothing is happening to those boys. and they are now either with the family or they're gone out somewhere, they're doing their job and earning their livelihood. This operation became very successful. And with the credit goes to everyone involved in this, like I said earlier, more than 50 boys in that 1 year returned. So that is the achievement of this small little thing which one had learnt in childhood, that a Kashmiri mother holds the reins in the family. And her love will always get the boy back. And like today you are saying, there is a Tiranga at the Secretariat, there is a Tiranga which flew at the Lal Chowk, there is a Tiranga flying at every government building, every prominent place. Yes, in India, the Tiranga will fly each and everywhere, irrespective of anyone's bad intentions or evil intention. Tiranga will fly in India. That is the mandate. And we will ensure, as all Indians and the government of India, that Tiranga flies unhindered on each and every inch of sovereign India. Having said that, the change which has happened in Kashmir in the last 2.5 years, especially after the abrogation of Article 370, is the confidence which a common Kashmiri has got in the way government will be run, the way his needs will be looked after, the way infrastructure, education, like I said earlier, health, the airports, the tourism will be brought up in Kashmir. All these things will give the job opportunities, the employment opportunities, better health facilities, better education for the next generation. This is exactly what a common Kashmiri, a common Indian, or common citizen of any country would want. Now, once that is there in front of them, and that's now coming up, it's taking shape. That is how the radicalization, the false propaganda of Pakistan, and the backbone of terrorism will be broken. The terrorism's backbone will be broken by the Kashmiris and Kashmiris only. They are coming forward now. They are the ones who are respecting the national flag. They are the ones who are hosting the national flag. And they are the ones who are coming out and giving information about any terrorist activity. So it's the common awam of Kashmir which has brought in this change, and the change is still happening. And I only see very bright future for Kashmir, the Kashmiris, and the Kashmiriyat is going to reign supreme in Kashmir.
All right. You spoke in detail about Kashmir. I'm very grateful to you, sir. We are running out of time. But before you go, people loving you call you Tiny Dhillon. And we've seen a lot of support on social media also. Once you returned, your videos, your photographs, your one-liners have gone viral. And people perhaps want you to continue because you are still young and dynamic, and you ideas that you have actually shown on the ground in Kashmir Valley as well. So will we see Tiny Dhillon in some new avatar, in some new major role, anywhere across India? Who knows, in Jammu and Kashmir?
Okay, Aditya, I'm very fond of ghazals. And one ghazal, I will not, since we are out of time, I will not share the whole thing. I'll just say one line. Ye kahani fir sahi. Thank you.
All right, General Dhillon, we'll respect that. But we certainly hope that you have all the success, good health. You have served the country. We salute you for that very bravely, and that too at historic junctures at Jammu and Kashmir. Thank you so much for that. And of course, hope to see you in a new avatar, in some new, perhaps, role very soon. Thank you so much for joining us here on CNN News 18.
Thank you, Retd. Thank you, everyone, and Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.